Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock. It's time for another video. And today I'm going to be doing a video that has been very requested. I'm going to talk to you guys about competitions. Let's be honest, competitions are an absolutely huge part of the Magic community. Right from sort of beginner level all the way through to sort of FISM level. There's competitions going on all of the time. And you know what? One of my favorite things that I did when I first got into Magic is I would be entering competitions all over the place, any and all competitions, bring it on. I used to love entering Magic competitions, and there's a few reasons why I used to love entering Magic competitions. The first reason is it gave me a deadline to work on something that I wanted to work on, which has kind of trickled down to Ryland as well. And what I mean by that is if I've got an idea for an act, if I kind of say, right, I'm going to put that act together specifically for a competition, it gives me a cutoff point. It gives me a time frame, which is kind of important, because if you don't have that, time can almost run away from itself, if that kind of makes sense. I also loved competing. I just loved performing. I know a lot of people don't like performing in front of magicians. I actually enjoyed performing in front of magicians, and being in competitions allowed me to do that. It allowed me to help me build my brand within the Magic community and show people who I am and what I do and what I'm capable of. And I found competitions fun, as well, especially when you win them. And the thing about the Magic industry is there are, especially the Magic community, there are competitions at every level. So if you first join a club and you join a society, there's normal local competitions, local society competitions, close-up competitions, stage competitions. Then you've kind of got competitions that are on a bigger level, like the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year, Magic Circle Stage Magician of the Year. The London Magic Convention has their competition as well. There's a lot of bigger competitions in America. There's hundreds of these kind of national competitions. And then you've got world-class competitions like FISM and various different categories inside FISM. And you know what? There's a lot of people in this industry that have literally launched their careers by going and putting together a competition that they then used to do well at FISM. I talk on this channel all the time about Soma's phone act, which I think is absolutely amazing. I think it's one of the best acts that I've ever seen put together ever. And off the back of doing so well at FISM with that phone act, Soma traveled the world, going to conventions, going to Magic competitions, constantly going out and getting paid to go and perform that act in front of magicians. So there's a lot of reasons to enter a competition, as well as just getting better. One thing that we should all strive for as performers is to get better, to improve. And how do you get better? Well, I've said it before. I'll say it again till the day that I die. The single most important thing is flight time. The more you perform, the better you get. You go out and you enter a competition, you're going to have to work that competition act in. You're going to go and have to go and perform it. Entering competitions is going to make you a better magician. It's as simple as that. So with that in mind, I get a lot of people asking me all the time saying, how do you do well at competitions? What should you do to prepare for competitions? I don't really enter competitions anymore, but there was a long period of my life where I used to enter competitions on a very regular basis. Some you win, some you don't win, some I lost, some I did well, some I won. And that's the thing about competitions. You shouldn't have the mentality of, I'm going to enter and win every competition, because that's never going to happen. The day that you think you're the best in the world is the day that somebody is going to come along and prove you wrong. I'm telling you right now, if you're sitting there thinking I'm the best magician in the world, there's somebody in another country that you've never met that is a million times better than you. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but that's just the nature of the beast. But I wanted to put together a 10-point list. 10 things that you would need to do if you're going to enter and do well at competitions. I spoke to a few friends that enter competitions as well, and I drew off my own experience. And this is kind of a 10-point list on what you can do if you want to enter competitions within the Magic community. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. Let's look at point number 1. So the first point is plan something unique. It's very easy, especially at club level, to go out and do a competition act and do something that just do generic stuff. I've seen it happen over and over again. I've gone to club competitions and someone turns up and they do an ambitious card and then they do a coin to cross, and that's fine, and that's all well and good, and an act like that could win at club level. But if you're wanting to enter a competition, a bigger competition, and you're wanting to win in a bigger competition, you need to plan something unique. You need to plan something different. And you also need to understand the audience. And what I mean by that is something that works as a commercial act that would work in front of a lay audience might not necessarily be the best thing to do in front of an audience that is magicians. If you've ever performed in front of magicians before, you'll know that it's a difficult thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. And you kind of want to go in with an act that is unique, that magicians can enjoy. And what I mean by that is when I say plan something unique, I always talk about Rob James and his laptop act, which was a brilliant act back in the day. And he came in and he said, hey, I've got this laptop. It's got artificial intelligence built into it. It's going to listen to me perform. Every time I tell a bad joke, it's going to count it. And that's what would happen. Every single time he told a classic cheesy magician joke, the laptop would go ding and it would tick up one on the screen, which then led to a revelation. Now, that's not going to fool a room full of magicians, but the premise is going to make them laugh. It's going to make them enjoy the experience. Then you look at somebody who beat me in a competition. The second time I entered the Blackpool Close-Up Magician of the Year, I got beat by Johann Stahl. And you know what? Johann won the whole thing, and rightfully so, because he exhibited incredible technique, far and beyond anything that anybody had seen before, and that was something that really made him stand out. So when I say plan something unique, it could be something that your technique is unlike anything that I've ever seen before. Look at Rick Merrill with his homeschooled act. A lot of the stuff that he was doing with Sharpies and Sharpie manipulation had never been seen before. That's an example of doing something unique, something different. We talked before about the phone act. That's another example of something that's very unique and very different. Everyone's seen A Miser's Dream, but who's seen A Miser's Dream with a phone box, So plan something unique and make sure what you're doing is very, very different to what people have seen before, especially because you're going to be performing in front of a magical audience. Okay, so the second point is set time frames. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you're going to know when the competition is going to be on, right? I'm currently filming this in July. Let's say that you're entering a competition which takes place in November. So you've got from July to November to put that competition act together. So you need to make sure that you're on track. You need to make sure that there are time frames set in. So, when are you going to get this bit done, right? When is it going to be ready to be performed in front of a real world? Because honestly, you never want to try and enter a competition with stuff that you've never worked in before, because it's a little bit like creating a magic trick. When you perform something 1,000 times or 100 times, it will become better than the first time you did it. I don't understand why people who create magic never perform it in front of a real audience and just release it, because that product would be a better product if they'd performed it in front of real people, because you learn so much when you're performing it in a real world environment. It's the same with the competition act. You have to perform that in front of real people. When are you going to do that by? When are you going to have this by? You got to set time frames when you're entering competitions, and you got to know when each part is ready, because at the end of the day, that date for that competition is never going to change. It's going to be on that date at that time, and you need to be ready. So you need to be organized, and you need to plan your time frames accordingly. Okay, so the third point I've got here is collaborate. And what I mean by that is if you're serious about winning a competition, you want to collaborate with other magicians. You want to get other magicians to help you to put together the best show that you can do, the best act that you can do. Now, when I talk about collaboration, that can happen on a few different levels. It could be right at the very beginning, you're trying to come up with something to do with the act. You're trying to come up with a unique act, something different, something unique. You speak to other magicians and you say, hey, this is an idea that I've got. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? It could be that you're collaborating in terms of you're collaborating with another magician when you're putting the actual act together. So, for example, when Ryland did America's Got Talent, I was getting John Morton to help me design the props. I was getting Phil Smith to help me to design the look of the props. I was getting Drew Perry to help me design what the actual final reveal would look like. I was collaborating with all of these magicians that were helping me make Ryland's act the best it could possibly be in that environment. So when I'm talking about collaboration, it could be collaborating in terms of the initial idea or the initial premise or how the act is going to be structured. It could be in terms of the props that are being built or whatever it is that you're doing to put the act together. Then when you've got the act together and you feel like you've got it set, you then perform the act in front of magicians you can trust. And by trust, I mean trust to give you honest feedback. You don't want a yes man at this point. You don't want someone to turn around to you and say, yes, that was brilliant, that was amazing, that was awesome, that was the best act I've ever seen. No, at this point, you need to collaborate with people that are going to tell you the truth, that will turn around to you and say, well, I thought that was really good, but I think this could be better, or I think this could be better, or I think that could be better. Because at that point, within your time frames that we talked about earlier, you need to tweak this, and make it better and make it better and make it better and make it the perfect act for the situation that you're going to be doing it in. So number three, point number three is collaborate every step of the way through the competition journey. Okay, this is an important one. Understand the criteria and plan accordingly. This is something that a lot of people don't do when they're entering a competition, but every individual competition is going to have judging criteria. You need to be very clear about what that judging criteria is. How many judges are they? How many judges are there? Who are the judges? Are there lay judges or are they all magical judges? Because a lot of competitions will have a lay person judge the act as well. So you're getting feedback from a lay person point of view as well as magical point of view. And then you want to look at the criteria. So you want to say, right, okay, what's the criteria? What am I getting marked on? What are the criteria? So for example, a lot of the time, the criteria might be showmanship, in which case you have to think about presentation. If the criteria is, for example, technique, and they're taking technique and sleight of hand into consideration, then you have to make sure that you're putting something in your act that involves technique, that involves sleight of hand. If they're giving 30% of the marks towards sleight of hand and how difficult the act is to perform or whatever, you're doing self-working mentalism. It could be the best mentalism in the world, but if you're not showing any skill and it's all self-working props, you're going to lose marks. It's the same as if you're doing a trick that's completely self-working. It may be the best trick in the world. You may present it better than anyone else, but if you're not showing any sleight of hand, that's going to mark you down. A big one is appearance. Is there a judging criteria on appearance? I remember entering a competition which I won, and 10% of the marks were appearance. So I wore a suit and a tie, a three-piece suit and a tie, which I don't normally do. But I won a three-piece suit and a tie because why wouldn't I? If I don't do that, I've lost 10% of my marks already before I even start. I'm behind everyone else because I've not taken that into consideration. So when you enter a competition, get organized with it and understand exactly what the judging criteria is, and then plan your act accordingly to maximize the marks from that particular competition. Okay, point number 5 is think outside the box. What I'm talking about specifically here is the theme. You want to be doing something, you want to try and theme the act. I honestly think that the best way to really make an impression on an audience is if the act has a theme, and it's not just a series of tricks that are just being performed. Now, you can get away with that. I remember James Brown winning the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year, and he won it purely on charisma and technique, sleight of hand ability. Like, he was absolutely phenomenal. But it's better, generally as a rule, to have a theme running throughout the act. Try to make the act have a theme. Now, the theme doesn't have to be, like, you look at Ryland's Harry Potter act, that's themed all the way through to Harry Potter. In the same competition, you saw somebody like Rafferty do a themed act that's all based around producing glasses of water, and he's in the jungle and he's really hot. Now there's that sort of theme, and then there's the sort of theme that I talked about earlier on with Rob James, where you have a laptop, and the laptop is the core focus of the act, and that's the thing that's bringing all the other elements of the act together. So think about the theme. Don't just say, right, okay, I need to be technical and I need to make sure that there's lots of showmanship, so I'm going to do this trick and this trick and this trick. And you're not thinking about transitions, you're not thinking about moving from one trick to another, you're just literally putting a bunch of tricks together. That is not a way to win a competition. The way to win a competition, especially at a higher level, is to think of a theme that runs all the way through it. And as I say, it doesn't have to be a theme that takes, that's obvious. It could be a more subtle, understated theme. Like I remember seeing Eva win the Young Magicians Close-Up Magician of the Year, and one of the reasons that she won is because the whole act was themed to chocolate. Every single trick was themed to chocolate. She started off by producing chocolate, making chocolate turn into a playing card. Then she brought some more chocolate out. There was a production of chocolate. She did a chop cup with chocolate. It was all themed. So think about how you can actually theme your act, because that will help maximize the point. Okay, so the next point I'm going to say, point number 6, is incorporate magician foolers. Incorporate magician foolers. And that's really important. This goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the video, which is you're going to be performing for magicians. So because you're going to be performing for magicians, it absolutely makes sense to include magician foolers, moments in the act that either fool magicians or really freaking impress the magicians, right? And again, I'm going to go back to Soma's act. Soma's phone act, if you've seen it before, one of the iconic moments in the act is where he's doing he's tearing up a newspaper, and one of the pieces drops on the floor, and he leans down to pick it up. The music stops, and he ends up in a leaned position. And then it's almost like time reverses. The music goes, the time reverses, and the piece comes up, hits the newspaper, and the newspaper restores. And it looks like it's this moment where he's just reversed time 5 or 6 seconds in order to fix the newspaper that he was ripping up. It's an incredible moment. Right there, it made the audience pop. It made the audience just blow the roof off the building, and for good reason. It was an incredible moment in an already awesome show, and it happened right at the very beginning of the act. So think about magician foolers and think about things that you can do that really get the audience to react, because a lot of the time when you're performing in a competition, that audience reaction is very, very important. So think about what you can put in the act, think about what you can put in the show, think about what you can do to really kind of fool an audience, especially as they're magical judges there. You put moments in that people are going to be fooled by. Those like a lot of the competitions that I won many years ago was with Card in the Box. Now, I did Card in the Box when very few people were doing it, and there were, you were getting that moment where they were just missing the load of the card in the box, missing the load of the deck under the box. Nobody was seeing it coming, and it was a real surprise in the act. The other thing that I did in a lot of the competitions way back in the day is I was doing colour match style routines, but before that was a common thing and everybody knew what it was. But yeah, think about stuff that you can incorporate that's a bit of a magician fool, and that's an important point as well. Okay, so point number 7, and I mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again as its own point because it is so important, which is work the act in a lot. I'm going to say that again, work the act in a lot. That is so vitally important, it really is, because here's the thing. If you just plan the act out and you do it as is, and you've never done it in front of an audience before, and you're doing it for the first time, it's never going to be as good as if you'd worked it in a million times. Because when you've worked it in a million times, you've figured out all the different places that it can go wrong, and you've kind of fixed it, right? And case in point is Ryland's Harry Potter act. He originally put that act together for the Family Entertainer at the Blackpool Magic Convention 2024. Now, because we didn't have much time to put it all together, he only had one chance to do that act before he did it on stage at the Winter Gardens. He didn't have enough time to work it in, and there were issues and problems with that act that wouldn't have happened and wouldn't have been there if we performed the act like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 times. He has now probably done, since Blackpool, he's probably done that Harry Potter act about 100 times, if not more. And he did it most recently at the Ferrybridge Day of Magic, and Danny Hunt turned around to him and said, "That's the best I've ever seen the Harry Potter act." That was absolutely incredible. And it was incredible because he's just gone and done it an awful lot. He's worked it in. That is the single most important thing. Find somewhere to work this act in. I don't care where. If it's a close-up act, go into a restaurant, offer to perform for free. Do this act over and over and over again. If it's a stage act, contact like care homes, contact working men's clubs, contact open mic nights. Do whatever you can to perform the act in front of a real audience. That's very, very, very important. Okay, so the next point is try to stand out. This is point number 8. Try to stand out. And I've put in brackets here Douglas Tilson. The reason I've put Douglas Tilson there is because he most recently entered FISM with an act that is all based on Alice in Wonderland. And honestly, I think that Douglas was doing everything right. I saw that act a couple of times. I saw it at the IBM convention. I've seen it another time. I saw it at the Curious Cabaret. I've seen him do that act a few times. And it's an incredible act for so many different reasons. First of all, it's got the theme running all the way through it. Second of all, he's really delved deep with the characterization. He's kind of got this Mad Hatter character. All of the tricks are themed to that act. So he's got tricks with tea, he's got tricks with pocket watches, but he's also got moments in the act that as a magician I watch and I go, what the fuck? Like really visual moments that just pop an audience, and they pop a lay audience, so they're going to pop a magician audience, absolutely for sure. They and I've seen him perform it in front of magicians, and magicians are just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. There's moments in the act, everything that I've talked about is in there, and it really helps him stand out. Every time I've seen Douglas Tilson perform in a competition, everybody else is just turning up and going, hey, my name's Craig, I'm going to do some magic. Hey, look, I've got a wallet here. I'm going to show you something with a wallet. And that's all well and good, but then he comes out, you know, there's music playing all the way over the top of the act. He's dressed up like the Mad Hatter. He's speaking in an overly exaggerated voice. He stands out. From a judge's point of view, he's memorable. Half the battle is to stand out and be memorable to the judges. The judges are going to see, what, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 acts, depending on the competition. You need to stand out. You need people to remember who you are and what you did. And if you're just doing generic magic and you dress like a generic magician, you're not going to stand out as somebody who's walking out on stage being the Mad Hatter, right? So that's very, very important. Try to stand out in every aspect of what you do in the competition. Okay, so the next point that I've got for you is don't stress. Or if you do stress, manage your nerves. That's so important. Look, I've put videos up online in the past about managing nerves and not stressing out and how to manage stress and how to deal with stress. All of this stuff is important. The thing that will cripple an act is if you are nervous. If you are nervous and your hands start shaking and you can't speak because your mouth's so dry, that's going to massively impact your chances of winning a competition. So first of all, you need to manage that. And one of the ways to manage it is going back to working it in, knowing the act inside out, back to front, left, right, side, rise, and upside down. You need to know that act. You need to know every single aspect of that act. Because the thing that causes people to stress a lot of the time is thinking what happens if it goes wrong. If you've done the act 500 times, you've probably had it go wrong, and you know where it's going to go wrong, and you know what to do to fix it. And once you have that knowledge inside of your head, things become less stressful because you know that you've done this a million times. It's why a lot of people advise people that are entering competitions to do the stuff that you know. You know, do the stuff that you've worked in for years. Now, there's nothing wrong with that advice if you're entering a smaller competition, but that's not something you can do if you're entering a bigger competition or you're really wanting to make a name for yourself through the use of competitions. But what you can do is you can put something unique, something different together, and then you can go and work it in, and you can find out where all the problems are with the act, and then you can fix it. All of that is very, very, very important. And, you know, ask yourself 2 questions. Just before the competition, ask yourself 2 questions. Have I done everything I can do to make sure this act is as good as it can be? And then the next question is there anything else I can do? And if the answer is yes, I've done everything I can do and there's nothing else I can do, then don't stress about it, because what's the point? All you're going to do by stressing about it is you're going to stress about something that you can't fix. Because if it's outside of your control to fix it, you can't do anything about it. Don't stress about it, right? Try to manage your stress, try to manage your nerves. That's the thing that's going to cripple a lot of people when it comes to entering competitions. Okay, so point number 10, the 10th point here is, and this is a big one, and I remember being told this many, many years ago by David Penn. And he said, don't watch the other competitors. One thing that you're going to want to be inclined to do is watch the other competitors while you're waiting to go on yourself. And I see a lot of people do it. It's never a good idea, because if you watch them, let's say you're on near last and you watch all the other acts before you go on, it's not going to do you any good. Because if you go and see if you have an act that goes on before you and you look at it and you go, oh my God, that's the most amazing act I've ever seen. Those guys are phenomenal. They're the best. You're kind of going to be defeated before you even go on stage. If you perceive that act to be better than yours, you're going to feel defeated. You're going to feel like, you know, what's the point? You're not going to put 100% in because you feel like there's no point. But if you watch an act that goes on before you and you think that you're better, it's going to give you an overinflated confidence, which you don't want either. My advice simply is go into the holding room for the competitors, put on some headphones, listen to some music, and wait to be called on stage. Everything should be set up, everything should be organized, everything should be planned out. You, at that point, don't need to check your props. You don't need to worry about whether it's going to work or not. At this point, there's nothing else that you can do to make it a success. So just listen to music and do not watch the other acts. Honestly, I cannot stress that enough. I have seen so many brilliant acts that have crashed and burnt because they thought, oh, you know, I'll watch the other acts, and it's really kind of affected them mentally before they go on stage. So don't watch the other acts in the holding room. Just sit there and relax. Okay, I've got one bonus point here. I've even put it at the bottom, bonus. Have fun. This is something that we forget about, right? We forget about having fun when we're doing this stuff. Look, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're entering competitions, you could have a million different reasons for entering competitions. You could want to win the prize money. You could want to build a big brand. You could want to win that competition so you can brag about it on your website or send a press release out about it. It could be that you're trying to get on the convention circuit and you want to make sure that you're... there's a million different reasons. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, none of those other reasons matter. Remember, magic is meant to be fun. It's a hobby. It may be a profession, it may be something that you take very, very seriously, and that's all well and good, but it's fun. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be enjoyable. And most importantly, have fun with it. Have fun with it. I can't say that enough. Have fun with it. It's really important to have fun when you're putting through the whole process, through the development of the act. Like me and Ryland are putting this orange juice act together with Matt at the moment. Yeah, we're putting it together as a competition piece for Ryland, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason we're putting it together is because Ryland loves performing magic, Matt loves choreographing acts and loves messing around with music, and you know, I love watching Ryland better himself. So we're all just having fun doing this process that we're going through ourselves at the moment for Ryland's next competition. So have fun with it. Just have fun. I cannot stress that enough. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Hopefully, for all the people that asked me to do a video about competitions and how to win competitions, this should be something that helps you. Do me a favor now, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, you want to see more videos like this, you know what you got to do. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you once again for joining me. Now, don't forget, if you haven't already done so, please go to the Netrix. It's www.thenetrix.com. You can go on there and see what all the fuss is about. Now, when you go onto the Netrix, you're going to see a ton of stuff, but go onto Steve Della's profile. Go and check out... go to contributors on the Netrix, go to artists, and go to Steve Della. You're going to see a ton of stuff that he actually filmed to do with competitions. Steve has won more competitions than most people have had hot dinners, and his advice is absolutely legendary. So go, if you're a Netrix member, go and check that out as well, because he's got some incredible advice on competitions. But outside of that, thank you once again for joining me. I will see you again soon. My name's Craig from Magic TV.